The doorbell rang at exactly 8:47 p.m. I knew exactly who it was. 23 family members watching. My husband turned white as his napkin. Camilla, my Brazilian housekeeper, dropped her serving tray. But what happened in those next 15 minutes? Well, let's just say none of them ever imagined that a 60-year-old woman could be so patient. Or so dangerous. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I learned that kindness and naivety are two completely different things. Let me take you back to the beginning, to that March morning when I still believed that beautiful people had beautiful souls. I was in my garden, watering the roses Richard had given me for our wedding anniversary. 15 years together in our beautiful colonial home in Buckhead, Atlanta. White picket fence, manicured lawn, the kind of life you see in magazines. I thought I knew every corner of my existence. My sister Linda always said I had the perfect life. Sarah, you and Richard are like something out of a fairy tale, she'd tell me at our monthly family dinners. My parents adored Richard. His parents treated me like the daughter they never had. That's when I heard someone crying outside our gate. She was there, leaning against the stone wall of our house. Blonde hair cascading like a waterfall, green eyes swollen with tears, wearing a simple white blouse and a skirt that hugged every curve. "Please," she said with a heavy Brazilian accent. "Can you help me? I have nowhere to go." Camila Santos, 30 years old, came to America with promises of work that never materialized. Her previous employer had fired her without notice, without pay, without anything. She had only $200 in her pocket and 3 days to move out. "I work very hard," she said, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "I clean, I cook, I take care of house. I just need a chance." I looked at this young, vulnerable woman and felt something that had always defined me: compassion. My mother always said that helping others was the only way to honor the blessings we receive. "Do you have references?" I asked. She shook her head, more tears falling. "I know it's hard to trust without references, but I promise you won't regret it." Promises. How sweet they can sound when wrapped in genuine desperation. "All right," I said. "You can stay in the staff quarters for now. Let's see how it works out." The smile she gave me in that moment. It was like sunshine after a storm. Pure, grateful, real. At least that's what I thought. Richard came home that evening and found Camilla organizing the pantry. I was in the living room reading when I heard their conversation in the kitchen. "Sarah," he called to me, "who's the young lady?" "Camilla. She's going to work here for a while." There was a pause that lasted too long. "She's young," he said, and there was something in his voice I couldn't identify at the time. "She needs help, Richard. You always say we should give back our blessings." Of course. It's just, don't you think you should have consulted me first?" 15 years of marriage, and this was the first time Richard questioned a decision I made about our home. Should have been a red flag, but I still believed in kindness. Still believed that when you do good, good comes back to you. In the first few days, Camilla was a dream. She woke up before me, had coffee ready, kept the house spotless. She had this youthful energy that made everything seem brighter. "Miss Sarah," she always said, "thank you for giving me this opportunity. I will work very hard to deserve it." Richard seemed impressed too. "She's very efficient," he commented one night. "And polite. See? I told you she was special." Special. That word would come back to haunt me. Because what I didn't know was that Camilla had a very particular talent. A talent she had perfected over years in various houses with various men. The talent of making tears look real. But I didn't know that yet. I was still congratulating myself for being a good person, for extending a hand to someone in need. Until 3 weeks later, I started noticing small changes. You know how it is when you've been married for 15 years. You notice everything. The way he ties his shoes, the side of the bed he gets out of, the exact time he usually comes home. Richard arriving 10 minutes later from work. "Traffic," he'd say. Richard showering as soon as he got home. "It was a long day," he'd explain. Richard suddenly interested in supervising the housework. I just want to make sure she's adapting well, he'd justify. Small things. Things that a wife of 15 years notices, but that can still be explained innocently. I called my sister Linda one evening, needing to talk to someone. Linda, do you think I'm being paranoid? About what, honey? Richard's been different lately. More attentive to how the house looks, asking about Camilla's work. Sarah, you're probably just adjusting to having someone new in the house. It's normal. Normal. I wanted it to be normal. But then came the morning I found a blonde hair on my pillow. I'm brunette, always have been. Camilla is blonde. Very blonde. I stood there, holding that strand of hair between my fingers, feeling my world start to shake. You ever have that moment when your mind desperately tries to find an innocent explanation for something that, deep down, you know isn't innocent? I spent 2 whole weeks in that state, barely sleeping, jumping every time my phone rang, watching Richard's face for signs of guilt. The hair? Maybe it had stuck to Richard's clothes. Maybe the wind had brought it from the window. Maybe. But the signs kept coming, and I started feeling physically sick. Nausea in the mornings, headaches that wouldn't go away. Richard started using a different cologne. When I asked, he said the old one had run out and he bought the first one he saw at the pharmacy. Since when do you buy cologne at the pharmacy? I asked. Richard always bought expensive perfumes at Nordstrom. Oh, Sarah, it's not a big deal. It's just cologne. It wasn't just cologne. It was the smell of someone trying to impress someone else. Camilla, meanwhile, was getting more comfortable in the house. She hummed while working, smiled more, had an energy I couldn't define. It was as if she had found something that made her happy. Very happy. Miss Sarah, she said one morning, Mr. Richard is a very kind man. Kind? Yes, he always asks if I need anything, if I'm adapting well. Not every employer cares so much about their employees. Employer. She called Richard an employer, not her boss's husband. Good that you two are getting along, I replied, watching her expression carefully. There was something there, a sparkle in her eyes when she talked about him. The kind of sparkle a woman has when she's interested. I started paying closer attention, and that's when the anxiety really kicked in. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. Richard began arriving home at exactly 6:30 every afternoon. Before, he'd arrive between 6:15 and 6:45, depending on traffic. Now it was always 6:30, military precision. Why are you arriving at the same time every day? I asked one night. I'm trying to be more organized with my time. You always said I should have a better routine. True, I always said that. But why had he suddenly decided to listen to me? Camilla also developed a routine. She always finished cleaning the living room at exactly 6:25, 5 minutes before Richard arrived. And she was always in the kitchen when he walked in, preparing something, organizing something, doing something that kept her visible. One evening, I almost confronted them. I was coming down the stairs and heard them talking in the kitchen, their voices low and intimate. I stopped halfway down, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. The tone was all wrong. Too familiar. Too comfortable. I stood there for 5 minutes, gathering courage to walk in and ask what they were discussing. But then Richard laughed, a laugh I hadn't heard in months, and I lost my nerve. I crept back upstairs like a stranger in my own home. But then I noticed she had changed her uniform. In the first few days, Camilla wore simple, practical clothes for work. Loose t-shirts, sweatpants, old sneakers. Now she wore tighter blouses, pants that showed off her body, shoes that made her legs look longer. Still appropriate for work, but definitely more attractive. Camilla, I said one day, did you buy new clothes? Oh yes, Miss Sarah. I got my first paycheck and wanted to dress a little better. I hope you don't mind. Of course I don't mind. You have the right to dress however you want. But there was something in the way she said, dress a little better, that bothered me. Dress better for whom? Richard was also different. More attentive to his appearance, more careful with his clothes. He started wearing shirts I didn't even know he had. "You're looking very elegant lately," I commented. "I'm trying to make a good impression at work. You know how important it is to maintain a professional image." 15 years at the same job, and now he was worried about professional image? But what really caught my attention was his phone. Richard had always left his phone anywhere. On the kitchen table, on the couch, on the nightstand. Total transparency. Suddenly, his phone was always in his pocket. Always face down, always on silent. "Why are you keeping your phone with you all the time?" I asked. "I'm expecting some important calls from work." "What calls?" "Oh, office stuff. Nothing major." Nothing major. That phrase was becoming too common in conversations with Richard. One night, he forgot his phone on the living room table while taking a shower. I looked at that device and felt my heart race. Would it be wrong to look? Would it be invasion of privacy? I picked up the phone. It had a passcode. Richard had never used a passcode on his phone. Never. I stood there, holding that phone that suddenly felt like a bomb about to explode, when I heard the shower water stop. I put the device back and pretended to be reading. Richard came out of the bathroom, immediately grabbed his phone and put it in his pocket. "Good night, honey," he said, giving me a kiss on the forehead. A kiss on the forehead, not on the lips, on the forehead. When was the last time Richard kissed me on the lips? I couldn't remember. That night, lying in bed next to the man I had shared 15 years of my life with, I felt something I had never felt before. Fear. Fear that my perfect life was an illusion. Fear that my kindness had been used against me. Fear that the woman I had saved was destroying everything I loved, but I still wasn't sure. There was still a small part of me that believed I was being paranoid, until I found something that couldn't be explained. It was a Thursday morning. Richard had left for an important meeting. Camila was at the grocery store. I was alone at home, trying to work on my laptop, when I got a call from my sister. "Sarah, did you see the photos from Mom's birthday that I posted on Facebook?" "Not yet, Linda. I'm kind of busy today." "You need to see them. There are some beautiful photos of you and Richard." I opened Facebook, looked for my sister's album. There we were, smiling at the camera, looking like the perfect couple I thought we were. That's when I saw the notification. Richard had liked a photo that wasn't from my sister's album. I clicked on the notification. It was a selfie of a young blonde woman in a bikini at the beach. The caption read, "Missing Brazil, Camila." My husband had liked a bikini photo of our housekeeper. I felt my stomach turn. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe he had liked it by accident. Maybe. I clicked on her profile. Richard hadn't just liked that photo. He had liked dozens of her photos. Old photos from before she worked for us. Photos from when she was still in Brazil. He had gone through her entire profile. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the screen, like. Some photos had comments from him. "Beautiful photo. What an incredible place. You look radiant." Emojis. Richard hated emojis, always said they were for teenagers. But there he was, using heart emojis in comments on a 30-year-old woman's photos. I kept investigating. I went to his profile. Camila also liked everything he posted. Old photos, work photos, photos of us. She even liked photos with me in them. What kind of person likes photos of the couple when she's interested in the husband? The kind of person who is very, very smart. I closed the laptop and went to the bedroom. I needed to think. I needed to process what I was seeing. That's when I heard Richard's phone ringing. He had forgotten his phone at home. The phone rang 4 times before stopping. Then it rang again. I looked at the screen. Camila was written there. Camila was calling my husband. My heart raced. Why was she calling him? Shouldn't she be at the grocery store? The phone stopped ringing. A few seconds later, a message arrived. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew I was invading his privacy. But I needed to know. I picked up the phone. It still had a passcode, but I'd seen Richard typing several times over the years. I tried our anniversary date. Didn't work. I tried his birthday. Didn't work. I tried my birthday. Didn't work. What passcode would he be using? I tried one last thing. Camilla's birthday. I had seen it on her work permit when I hired her. The phone unlocked. My husband had set our housekeeper's birthday as his phone passcode. I sat down hard on our bed. The room was spinning. I opened the messages. What I saw made me double over like I'd been punched in the stomach. Baby, you forgot your phone. I miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight. She went to the store. We have an hour. Message after message after message. I scrolled up, seeing weeks of conversations. You're incredible, my love. I've never felt this way about anyone. She doesn't suspect anything. She doesn't suspect anything. That phrase kept echoing in my head. I was she, the stupid wife who didn't suspect anything. I kept reading, even knowing that each word was a stab to my heart. When are we going to tell her? It's not time yet. I need to organize some things first. Organize what things? Financial matters. You know, financial matters. Richard was planning to leave me, and he was planning to take money. There were photos, too, photos they had taken together, intimate photos, photos in my house, in my bed, in my garden. They were having sex in my house, in my bed. While I was working, shopping, living my life, they were here, in my house, laughing at me. I felt a wave of nausea. I ran to the bathroom and threw up everything I had eaten for breakfast. When I got up, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed older, more tired, more broken. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of trust, building, love, destroyed by a woman I had saved from the street. I went back to the bedroom and picked up the phone again. More messages were arriving. Baby, where are you? I'm worried. I called several times. I hope everything's okay. I love you. I love you. She said she loved my husband, and from what I had read, he said he loved her too. I sat on the bed and cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since my mother's death. I cried for the naivety, the betrayed trust, the life I thought I had. But after 20 minutes of crying, something changed inside me. The sadness began to transform into something else, something colder, something more dangerous. They thought I was stupid. They thought I didn't suspect anything. They were wrong. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to throw them out of the house in a moment of fury. I was going to be smart. Because if there was one thing that 15 years of marriage to a businessman had taught me, it was that information is power. And I was about to collect a lot of information. I documented all the messages with my own phone. I saved the photos. I noted dates, times, details. Then I deleted the history that I had accessed his phone and put everything back exactly as it was. When Richard came home that night, I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, smiling as always. Hi, honey, he said, giving me that forehead kiss that I now knew meant guilt. Hi, dear. How was your meeting? Good, good. Productive? Lie. He hadn't gone to any meeting. He had spent the afternoon with Camilla somewhere. That's good. Camilla hasn't come back from the store yet? Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen her. Another lie. They had met. I had the messages to prove it. She should be back soon, I said, continuing to cut vegetables for dinner. Richard picked up his phone from the table where I had left it and checked the messages. I watched him from the corner of my eye. I saw his expression change when he read Camilla's messages, asking where he was. I'm going to take a shower, he said quickly. Sure, honey. Dinner will be ready in an hour. When he left the kitchen, I didn't smile. I planned. Because in the next 72 hours, I was going to learn exactly who I was dealing with. You know what they say about a woman scorned? They have no idea what a woman with a plan can do. Did you know you can buy security cameras the size of a button on the internet? Cameras that record in high definition and send everything directly to your phone? I didn't know, but I learned quickly. The next morning, after Richard left for work and Camilla went to the market, I drove to Best Buy. I need a home security system, I told the young man at the counter. What kind of coverage are you looking for, ma'am? Complete coverage. I want to see everything that happens in my house. I bought 6 cameras, a digital recorder, and a laptop dedicated solely to surveillance. The installation took me 3 tries. The first camera I placed in the living room kept falling out of the decorative vase. The second one in the kitchen was too obvious among the spices. By the third day, I had it figured out. One camera in the living room, hidden inside a picture frame. Another in the hallway leading to the bedrooms. A third in the kitchen, disguised as a smoke detector. I also bought a keylogger program online. Installing it on Richard's computer took 4 attempts and 2 YouTube tutorials. The first time I tried, I accidentally deleted his desktop. But by the 4th try, I had it working. Every keystroke, every website, every email, all recorded and sent to my phone. I was preparing for a war they didn't even know had begun. The first recording came on Tuesday. I was at the grocery store when my phone vibrated with a notification from the living room camera. Movement detected. I pulled over in the Publix parking lot and opened the app. Richard was entering the house at 2:30 p.m. He should have been at the office until 6 p.m. 5 minutes later, Camilla appeared on screen. They kissed right there in my living room on the couch where I watched the news every night. I sat in my car, watching my husband betray me in real time, and felt something I'd never felt before. Cold, calculating rage. They talked for a few minutes. I couldn't hear the audio from the living room camera, but I could read some words on their lips. Sarah was mentioned several times. Then they went upstairs, to my bedroom, to my bed. I closed the app. I didn't need to see that. I already had enough evidence of the affair, but I wanted more. I wanted to understand who Camilla Santos really was. That night, while she was washing dinner dishes, I started asking casual questions. Camilla, do you have family in Brazil? I do, Miss Sarah. My mother, my brothers. And your father? A pause. My father died when I was little. How sad. And were you married there? Another pause, longer. No, Miss Sarah, I was never married. Lie. I had seen a ring mark on her finger on the first day. A clear mark from someone who had worn a ring for a long time. Boyfriend? No, no one special. That's why I came here looking for a new life. More lies. And how did you get the visa to come? Oh, it was complicated. A lot of paperwork. She was clearly uncomfortable with the questions. Do you plan to stay in the United States for a long time? It depends, you know. If I can establish myself well. Of course. Do you have all your documents in order? She stopped washing dishes and looked at me. Why are you asking this? Curiosity. I always worry about the people who work for me. I want to make sure you're legal here. Everything's fine, Miss Sarah. Don't worry. But I saw the nervousness in her eyes, and I decided to investigate deeper. The next day, while she was cleaning upstairs, I went to her room. I had never violated an employee's privacy before. But Camilla had violated much more than privacy. She had violated my life. I looked for documents, papers, anything that would give me more information about who she really was. I found a folder hidden under the mattress. Inside were copies of documents: Brazilian passport, American visa, work permit. The visa had expired 2 years ago. 2 years. Camilla had been in the United States illegally for 2 years. But there was more. Much more. I found photos. Photos of her with different men, in different houses, wearing expensive clothes that clearly weren't hers. There were also business cards. Men with important names, addresses in wealthy neighborhoods like Buckhead and Sandy Springs. And there was a notebook. A notebook with names, phone numbers, and notes in Portuguese. I used my phone to document everything and used Google Translate for the notes. What I discovered made me sit on her bed, stunned. Camilla wasn't just a desperate housekeeper. She was a professional at seducing wealthy married men. The notes in the notebook were detailed. Roberto, married, 3 children, restaurant owner, wife travels a lot, vulnerable to attention, paid $2,000 to keep secret. Carlos, lawyer, married 20 years, marriage crisis, easy to manipulate, gave $5,000 and jewelry. Fernando, doctor, sick wife, needy, transferred $1,000 to Brazil account. Page after page of men, strategies, values. And at the end of the notebook, a new page. Richard, businessman, married 15 years, wife too trusting, he's in love, potential for big score. Big score. I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was the target of a con. I kept reading. Richard talked about divorce, said she would get half of everything, need to convince him to transfer money first. Brazil account number. Husband will receive and invest in business. Husband. Camilla was married. She had a husband in Brazil who received the money she extorted from American men. I documented every page, every document, every piece of evidence. Then I put everything back exactly as it was. When I left her room, my hands were shaking. Not from fear or sadness, from anger, pure, cold anger. This woman hadn't just destroyed my marriage. She had done it professionally, coldly, calculatedly. I was just another name in her notebook. But she had made a mistake. She had underestimated the wrong woman. That night, I installed more cameras, one in her room, another in Richard's office. If Richard was planning to transfer money, I was going to know. And if Camilla thought she was going to get away with it, she was very wrong. Because I had discovered something she didn't know I knew. She was in the United States, illegally, and I knew people who could do something about that. But first, I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. The keylogger I installed on Richard's computer was the best investment I ever made. In 3 days, I had access to everything. Emails, passwords, websites visited, documents created. Richard was much more involved than I imagined. On Thursday morning, while he was showering, I received a notification on my phone. He had accessed our joint bank account. I opened the keylogger app and saw exactly what he was doing. Transferring $50,000 to an account I didn't recognize. $50,000. Our money. Money we had saved together for 15 years. I immediately called the bank. I'd like to block any transfers over $1,000 from our joint account without my written authorization, I said. Of course, ma'am. May I ask the reason? Suspected fraud. I understand. The block will be activated immediately. When Richard came down for breakfast, I was reading the newspaper, drinking coffee, as if nothing had happened. Good morning, honey, he said, kissing my forehead. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Yes. Do you have any plans for today? The usual. Work, some meetings. And you? Work too. I might be a little late today. Of course he would be. He had a meeting scheduled with Camilla at 3 p.m. I had read the messages. That's fine. Camilla will prepare dinner. He smiled, a smile that I now knew hid much more than I imagined. After he left, I went straight to his computer. The keylogger had captured much more than the transfer attempt. There were emails, dozens of emails between Richard and Camilla using personal accounts I didn't know about. But what shocked me weren't the romantic emails. They were the business emails. Richard was planning to sell our house, the house we bought together, that was in both our names. He had contacted a real estate agent asking for a discreet appraisal. I need to know the market value of the property for financial planning purposes, he had written. Financial planning. He was planning to leave me and wanted to know exactly how much money he could get from me. But there was more. I found emails between him and a divorce attorney. My wife doesn't work full-time, he had written. She has some freelance projects, but nothing substantial. I believe I'm entitled to most of the assets since I'm the primary provider. I don't work full-time? I was a marketing consultant. I worked from home, yes, but I earned an excellent salary. A salary that had contributed significantly to our comfortable life. But Richard was trying to paint me as a dependent wife to the lawyer. She'll probably get the house, the lawyer had replied. But you can argue for a larger division of investments and bank accounts. What if she doesn't know about certain accounts? Richard had asked. Certain accounts. What accounts? I kept investigating and discovered that Richard had 3 bank accounts I didn't know about. 3 accounts with substantial amounts. Money he had diverted over the years, probably preparing for this moment. He had planned to leave me long before Camilla appeared. Camilla was just the catalyst. I documented all the emails, all the account information, all the documents. Then I called my own lawyer. "Marcus," I said when he answered, "I need an urgent consultation." Marcus Williams was one of the best divorce attorneys in Atlanta. I knew him socially. Our wives were friends from the junior league. "Sarah, is everything okay?" "No, nothing is okay. Can you see me today?" "Of course. How about 2 p.m.? "Perfect." Richard would be busy with Camilla. In Marcus's office in Midtown, I poured out everything. The messages, the photos, the emails, the secret accounts, the house sale plans. Marcus listened to everything in silence, occasionally taking notes. "Sarah," he said when I finished, "you have enough evidence to destroy Richard in a divorce." "I don't just want a fair divorce, Marcus. I want justice." "What do you have in mind?" "First, I want to protect all our assets. He can't touch anything without my authorization. I can get a court order for that today. Second, I want to investigate these secret accounts. If he hid money, I want every penny back. I can do that too. And third," I hesitated, "the housekeeper is here illegally." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Are you sure?" I showed him the photos of Camilla's documents. "Visa expired 2 years ago," he said, examining the images. "And you said she has an extortion scheme?" "I have evidence of at least 5 other men she blackmailed." "Sarah, this is federal crime. Extortion, immigration fraud, tax evasion." "I know. Do you want me to contact the authorities?" I thought for a moment. "Not yet. First, I want them to feel safe. I want them to continue with their plans." "Why?" "Because I want our entire family and friends to see who they really are. I want the humiliation to be public." Marcus smiled. "You want to organize an exposure." "Exactly." "When?" "At the anniversary dinner I'm planning for next Saturday." "You're going to invite the family?" "The whole family. Parents, siblings, cousins, close friends. 23 people. And you're going to expose everything in front of everyone?" "Everything. The messages, the photos, the financial plans, Camilla's scheme. And then? Then I make a phone call." "To whom?" "To immigration." Marcus was silent for a moment. "Sarah, are you sure you want to do this? Once you involve the authorities, there's no going back." "Marcus, this woman destroyed my life for money, coldly, professionally. She has a husband in Brazil who receives the money she steals from American men. She's not a victim, she's a criminal." "And Richard?" "Richard chose her over 15 years of marriage. He chose to steal from me instead of being honest. He made his choice." "All right. I'll prepare all the legal documents, the asset protection order, the account investigation, everything." "And Marcus?" "Yes? I want you at the dinner." "At the dinner?" "As my lawyer. I want Richard to know immediately that he no longer has access to anything." Marcus smiled again. "It's going to be an interesting dinner." When I left Marcus's office, I felt powerful for the first time in weeks. They thought they were controlling the situation. They had no idea I was 3 steps ahead. But I still had one more call to make, the most important one. You ever have to call U.S. immigration? It's not a simple process. First, you need to know exactly which department to call. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Then you need to have all the information organized. Full name, address, violation details, evidence. I spent 2 hours on Friday morning organizing everything. Name, Camila Santos, Silva. Date of birth, March 15, 1993. Address, my house violation. Tourist visa expired 2 years ago, illegal work, possible marriage fraud. Evidence, photos of documents, evidence of extortion scheme, proof she's married in Brazil. When I called, I was transferred 3 times before reaching the right person. Investigations Department, Agent Rodriguez speaking. "Hello, Agent Rodriguez. I'd like to report an immigration violation. Can you give me the details?" I explained everything. The expired visa, the illegal work, the extortion scheme, the marriage in Brazil. "Ma'am, do you have physical evidence of this?" "I have photos of all documents, bank records, text messages proving the scheme." "And you can provide us with this evidence?" "I can, but I'd like to make a special request." "What kind of request?" I'd like the arrest to happen tomorrow night, at 8:45 p.m. at my address. There was a pause. Ma'am, we don't schedule arrests for convenience. I understand, but tomorrow night there will be a family gathering at my house, 23 people, including members of the Brazilian community who might be in similar situations. Do you believe other people at the gathering might be in irregular status? It's possible. It would be a good opportunity for a general check. I see. I'll pass your information to the field team. They'll contact you if they need more details. Thank you, Agent Rodriguez. Thank you for reporting, ma'am. Citizens like you help us maintain national security. National security. Camila had become a national security issue. After the call, I started preparations for the dinner. I called all family members and close friends. Linda, I said to my sister, can you come to a special dinner tomorrow night? Of course. What's the occasion? It's a surprise. Just come, okay? And bring John and the kids. I called Richard's parents, my parents, our siblings, close cousins, some intimate friends. It's a special celebration, I told everyone. I can't say what it is, but you won't want to miss it. 23 people confirmed attendance. Then I went shopping for equipment. A portable projector, a projection screen, cables, adapters, everything I'd need for a complete audio-visual presentation. I also bought enough food for a banquet. If this was going to be my last night as Richard's wife, it would be a memorable night. Camilla was surprised by the preparations. Miss Sarah, what dinner is this? So much food! Oh, it's a small family gathering, nothing major. Can I help cook? Of course, Camilla. Your help will be essential. She smiled, having no idea of the irony. Richard was also curious. Honey, what celebration is this? You didn't tell me anything about a dinner? It's a surprise, dear. You'll love it. But who's coming? The whole family, your parents, my parents, our siblings, some friends. I saw a shadow of concern cross his face. Wouldn't it be better to give advance notice? You know how my mother gets nervous with surprises. Everything will be fine, Richard. Trust me. Trust me. The same words he had said so many times in recent months. On Friday night, I tested all the equipment. The projector worked perfectly. The photos and videos were organized in a devastating presentation. I also prepared printed copies of all evidence. One for each person present. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces when the truth would be revealed. Marcus arrived at 7 p.m. on Saturday to review the legal documents one last time. Everything ready? He asked. Everything ready. Are you sure you want to do this, Sarah? There's still time to reconsider. Marcus, you saw the evidence. You saw what they did. You saw what she is. I saw. But once this happens, there's no going back. Your life will change completely. My life already changed, Marcus. They changed my life. Now it's my turn to change theirs. At 7:30, the first guests started arriving. My parents, radiant as always. Richard's parents, elegant and curious. My sister Linda with her husband and children. Sarah, dear, my mother said, what special occasion is this? You'll find out soon, Mom. Richard was visibly nervous. He kept looking at Camilla, who was in the kitchen finishing preparations. I saw him try to catch her eyes several times, but she was avoiding his gaze. Smart girl. She sensed something was off. At 8 p.m., all 23 guests had arrived. The living room was full of the people I loved most in the world, people who had celebrated our wedding, our anniversaries, our successes, people who thought they knew Richard and me. Everyone, I said, tapping a spoon on my wine glass. Thank you for coming. Before we start dinner, I'd like to make a small presentation. What kind of presentation? Asked Richard's father. A presentation about love, trust, and discoveries. I turned on the projector. The first image appeared on screen. A photo of Richard and me at our wedding, 15 years ago. 15 years, I said. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of trust. 15 years of building a life together. Everyone smiled, thinking it was an anniversary celebration. But sometimes, I continued, we discover that the people we love aren't who we thought they were. The next image appeared, a screenshot of messages between Richard and Camilla. The silence in the room was instant and deafening. And sometimes, I said, my voice firm and clear, we discover that kindness can be used against us in ways we never imagined. The next image, Camila and Richard kissing in my living room, captured by the hidden camera. Gasps echoed through the room. My mother put her hand to her mouth. Richard's father went pale. My sister Linda stood up halfway, then sat back down hard. "Richard," I said, looking directly at my husband, who was frozen in his chair, "would you like to explain to our family what she doesn't suspect anything means?" Camilla appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding a tray. When she saw the image on screen, the tray slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. "But that's not all," I continued, moving to the next image, "because I discovered that our dear Camilla has some interesting secrets." The photo of her passport appeared on screen, with the expired visa clearly visible. Camilla has been in the United States illegally for 2 years. Murmurs of shock went through the room. Richard's mother said, "Oh my God," under her breath. "And she's not just a desperate housekeeper," I said, showing pages from her notebook. "She's a professional at seducing wealthy married men and extorting money from them." Photos of the other men appeared on screen, along with detailed notes. "Roberto, Carlos, Fernando," I read aloud. "And now Richard. All married, all wealthy, all targets of a very well-planned con." Richard tried to stand up. "Sarah, I can explain." "Sit down," I said firmly. "I'm not finished yet." My father's voice cut through the room. "Let her finish, Richard." The next image, Camilla's marriage certificate from Brazil. "Oh, and Camilla, you forgot to mention you're married. Your husband in Brazil must be very proud of the money you've been sending." Camilla was leaning against the wall, white as paper. "Sarah," she whispered, "I can explain." "No," I said, "you can't, because there's no explanation for 15 years of marriage destroyed by greed." I showed Richard's emails with the divorce lawyer, the house sale plans, the secret accounts. "And Richard," I said, "did you really think I wouldn't discover you were planning to rob me?" The silence in the room was deafening. 23 people looking at the man they thought they knew and the woman I had brought into our home. Richard's mother was crying silently. My father looked like he wanted to hit something. "But here's the best part," I said, smiling for the first time that night. "I protected all our assets. You don't have access to anything, Richard. Not 1 penny." Marcus stood up. "Richard, I'm Sarah's attorney. You have a court order here that freezes all marital assets until divorce resolution." Richard went even paler. "And Camilla," I said, looking at her, "you must be wondering what happens now." That's when the doorbell rang. 8:47 p.m., exactly as planned. "Oh," I said, "that must be my final surprise." I went to the door and opened it. 3 immigration agents were outside, uniformed and serious. "Mrs. Sarah?" asked the agent in front. "That's me. You arrived at the perfect time. We're looking for Camila Santos Silva." "She's right here," I said, pointing to Camilla, who was now visibly trembling. The agents entered the room, 23 pairs of eyes watching in absolute shock. "Camila Santos Silva," said the lead agent, "you're under arrest for violation of United States immigration laws." They put handcuffs on her right there in front of my entire family. "You have the right to remain silent," the agent continued. Camilla looked at Richard, desperate. "Richard, do something." Richard couldn't even speak. He sat there, watching his lover being arrested in front of his parents. "Ma'am," the agent said to me, "thank you for your cooperation. Your evidence was essential. It was my pleasure to help." They took Camilla away. She was crying, real tears this time. When the door closed, I turned to the room full of shocked family members. "Well," I said, "who wants dinner?" The silence that followed was the heaviest I'd ever experienced. 22 people. Camilla had been taken away, looking at me with a mixture of shock, admiration, and disbelief. Richard sat with his head in his hands, breathing heavily. "Sarah," my mother finally said, "what just happened?" "What happened, Mom, is that I discovered who my husband really is, and who I really am." My sister Linda stood up. Sarah, did you plan all this? Every detail. The call to immigration. That was me. The evidence. I collected it over 3 months. Richard's father finally spoke. Sarah, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Mr. Johnson. Your son made his choices. Richard raised his head. His eyes were red. Sarah, I know I made a terrible mistake. But this went too far. Too far? My voice went up an octave. Richard, you planned to rob me. You planned to sell our house without me knowing. You had sex with another woman in our bed. And I went too far? I was confused. You were confused? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Richard, you created secret bank accounts. You contacted a divorce attorney. You transferred $50,000 to her account. That's not confusion. That's premeditation. My brother-in-law, Linda's husband, cleared his throat. Sarah, maybe we should give you privacy to work this out. No, I said firmly. You're going to stay. You're going to hear everything. Because for 15 years, you saw Richard as a man of integrity. You saw our marriage as something solid. You deserve to know the truth. I picked up the printed copies I had prepared and started distributing them. These are all the evidence. The messages, emails, bank records, everything. Richard's mother took the papers with trembling hands. Richard, is this true? Did you really write these things? Richard couldn't look at her. Mom, She doesn't suspect anything, she read aloud. I need to organize financial matters before telling her. Richard, how could you? I was in love, he said quietly. In love? Her voice was breaking. With a criminal? With a woman who was using you? She wasn't using. Richard, I interrupted. You saw the evidence. You saw her notebook. You were just another name on the list. Potential for big score. Those were the exact words she used to describe you. He fell silent. My father, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Sarah, daughter, I'm proud of you. Everyone looked at him, surprised. Proud? Asked my mother. Yes. She discovered she was being betrayed and deceived, and instead of making an emotional scene, she was smart. She collected evidence. She protected her assets. She exposed the truth. That's what a strong woman does. Dad, I said, feeling tears coming for the first time that night. And Richard, my father continued, looking at my husband, you're a fool. You had an incredible woman, a good life, and threw it all away for what? For an affair with a criminal? Mr. Williams, I know I made a mistake. Mistake? My father stood up. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. This was a systematic betrayal of everything marriage represents. Richard's sister, who had been silent, finally spoke. Sarah, what happens now? Now, Richard leaves my house. Tonight. Sarah, Richard said, where am I going to stay? Not my problem. You should have thought about that before planning to leave me. But I don't have access to money. Exactly, you don't. And you won't until the divorce is finalized. Marcus stood up again. Richard, you have the right to legal representation. I suggest you find a lawyer. With what money? Again, I said, not my problem. My niece, Linda's daughter, who was 16, raised her hand timidly. Aunt Sarah, can I ask a question? Of course, sweetheart. How did you manage to be so calm? If it were me, I would have screamed and broken everything. I smiled at her. You know, Emily, I learned something important. Anger is a valid feeling, but revenge is a dish best served cold. When you act with emotion, you make mistakes. When you act with intelligence, you get justice. And did you get justice? I looked around the room. Richard humiliated in front of family. Camilla arrested and being deported. My assets protected. The truth exposed. Yes, Emily, I got justice. The dinner that followed was surreal. Some people ate in silence. Others asked questions about details. Richard didn't touch his food. At 10 p.m., people started leaving. Each person who left hugged me and whispered words of support. You're stronger than I ever imagined. said my sister. "If you need anything at all, call me," said my brother-in-law. "I'm proud of you, daughter," said my mother. Even Richard's parents hugged me. "Sarah," said his mother, "I'm so sorry, so very sorry." "It's not your fault, Mrs. Johnson. We always loved you like a daughter. That won't change." When everyone left, only Richard, Marcus, and I remained. "Richard," Marcus said, "you have 1 hour to pack your personal things and leave." 1 hour? 1 hour. Clothes, personal items, nothing more. Richard went upstairs to the bedroom. I could hear drawers being opened, clothes being thrown into suitcases. "Sarah," Marcus said, "are you sure you're okay?" "I'm better than I've been in months, Marcus." That was impressive and a little scary. "Scary? Remind me never to betray you," he said, smiling. I laughed. "You're married, Marcus. Happily married, especially after today." Richard came down with 2 suitcases and a defeated expression. "Sarah," he said, "I know you'll never forgive me, but I want you to know that I really loved you. For many years, I loved you." "Richard," I said, "if you really loved me, you never would have done this. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. Every day, you choose to love and respect the person you married. You chose differently." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "You're right. I know." He walked out the front door, carrying his suitcases. 15 years of marriage ended with the sound of a door closing. Marcus left shortly after, leaving me alone in the house that was now completely mine. I sat on the couch where Richard and Camilla had kissed and felt peace. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable, in the best possible way. Camilla was deported to Brazil 3 weeks after her arrest. I found out later that she faced criminal charges there too. Apparently, her scheme wasn't limited to the United States. Her Brazilian husband, who received money from the extortions, was also arrested. Poetic justice. Richard tried to contest the divorce, but with all the evidence I had collected, he didn't stand a chance. He lost the house, half the investments, and had to pay substantial alimony to me. The secret accounts he had created? All discovered and divided. In the end, I came out of the divorce with 70% of everything we had built together. He now lives in a small apartment in Marietta and works for a smaller company. Apparently, the story of our divorce spread through Atlanta's business circles. But the best part of my new life wasn't the financial justice. It was discovering who I really was. 3 months after the divorce, Marcus called me. "Sarah, would you mind talking to a client of mine? She's going through a situation similar to yours." "What kind of situation?" "Cheating husband. She suspects she's being financially manipulated, but doesn't know how to prove it." "And you want me to do what?" "Teach her what you learned. How to investigate, how to collect evidence, how to protect herself." That conversation changed my life. Marcus's client was named Jennifer. 45 years old, married for 20, suspected her husband was having an affair with his secretary. I taught her everything. How to install discrete cameras, how to use keyloggers, how to protect assets, how to document evidence. 2 weeks later, Jennifer had irrefutable proof of the affair and had completely protected her assets. "Sarah," she said when we met for coffee at a Starbucks in Buckhead, "you saved me. Literally saved me." "You saved yourself, Jennifer. I just showed you the tools." "No, you did more than that. You showed me I didn't have to be a victim." Word spread quickly through Atlanta's social circles. Marcus started referring other clients to me. Then other lawyers started seeking me out. In 6 months, I had helped 15 women discover affairs, protect assets, and reclaim their lives. I became a consultant specializing in discreet matrimonial investigation. It wasn't a job I had planned, but it was work that gave me purpose. And then I met David. David came into my life in the most unexpected way. He was the lawyer for the 12th woman I helped. 45 years old, divorced for 3 years, 2 teenage children, smile that lit up the room. "Sarah," he said after our first work meeting, "would you like to have dinner with me?" Not professionally? Personally? I hesitated. David, I just got out of a 15-year marriage that ended dramatically. I know. Marcus told me the story. Not all of it, but enough to know you're an extraordinary woman. Extraordinary? You turned one of the worst betrayals imaginable into a new career helping other women. That's extraordinary. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Virginia Highland. We talked for 4 hours. David made me laugh in a way I had forgotten was possible. You know, he said during dessert, I've never met a woman who installed spy cameras in her own house. And I've never met a man who found that attractive. Oh, I find it very attractive. Intelligence is the greatest aphrodisiac there is. 6 months later, David moved into my house, the house I had fought to keep. It wasn't easy to trust again. There were nights I woke up in panic, checking his phone, looking for signs of betrayal. Sarah, David said one of those nights, finding me looking at his phone, do you want to put a keylogger on my computer? What? If it's going to make you feel safe, do it. I have nothing to hide. David, I can't. Of course you can. You went through trauma. Trust is rebuilt slowly. I never installed the keylogger, but the fact that he offered told me everything I needed to know about who he was. 1 year after the dinner that changed my life, David proposed to me. Sarah Williams, he said, kneeling in the garden where I had first met Camilla, will you marry me? David, I'm 61 years old, and I'm 46. So what? What if you get tired of me? What if you find someone younger? Sarah, you're the most fascinating woman I've ever met. You're intelligent, strong, brave, and incredibly sexy. Why would I want someone younger when I can have someone extraordinary? We married 6 months later, in a small ceremony in the garden. Marcus was my man of honor. Today, 2 years after that fateful dinner, my life is better than I ever imagined it could be. I have a husband who loves and respects me. I have a career that gives me purpose. I have a house that is truly mine. And I have a story. A story I tell to the women who seek me out, women who have discovered affairs, women who feel lost and betrayed. You are not victims, I tell them. You are survivors. And survivors can choose how their story ends. Some people ask me if I regret exposing Richard and Camilla so publicly. The answer is no. They made choices, calculated, cold, selfish choices. I simply made sure they faced the consequences of those choices. Richard taught me that kindness without boundaries is vulnerability. Camilla taught me that not all tears are real. But David taught me that it's still possible to trust, love, and be happy. And I taught myself that a 60-year-old woman can be more dangerous, more intelligent, and more resilient than anyone imagines. They thought age meant weakness. They discovered that age means experience, patience, and the wisdom to know exactly when to strike. And when you underestimate a woman who has lived long enough to know her own worth, well, you end up being served at a dinner you'll never forget. Which city are you listening from today? I love seeing where my stories reach around the world. At what point would you have said, enough is enough? Let me know in the comments. And if this story gave you strength to set your own boundaries, a super thanks helps me bring you more stories of justice and empowerment. Remember, ladies, kindness is a strength, but it should never come without wisdom. Trust your instincts, protect your assets, and never let anyone make you feel like you're too old, too trusting, or too kind to fight back. Sometimes the most dangerous woman in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Until next time, this is your Auntie Sarah reminding you that revenge is a dish best served cold, preferably at a family dinner.